Hello and welcome viewers. In my video presentation today, I'll be discussing a statement about contemporary art and whether I agree or disagree with said statement. My statement comes from a journal written about a speech by Jodi Dean. For context, Jodi Dean is an author, speaker, writer and critique who delves into political influences and movements from around the world, explaining their failures, collapses, successes and impacts on the contemporary world of today. The statement she has made was about contemporary art in relation to capitalism, the economy, and politics, and how they all influence each other and rely on each other. Jodi Dean states that if contemporary art is not organised in large-scale movements, then it fails, in relation to contemporary art within politics and capitalism involving the economy. This statement I found myself on the fence for a little while. From historical evidence, she is not wrong. But with how contemporary art is today, it's much more than a large-scale movement. But instead it's unique to every artist. However, I decided to agree with the statement due to the factors of politics and capitalism influencing today's modern art world. To understand the statement better, context is relevant, and so breaking it down into components makes it much easier to understand. Large-scale movements refers to postmodern art and the movements it's transitioned through, from Cubism, Surrealism, Expressionism, pop-art, etc. Capitalism tends to profit from large-scale movements due to the connection of art to large-scale production and profits. Andy Warhol's prints, for example, were easily reproduced and sold for profits by large-scale companies, and along with this utilised by political parties for their own gain. Art movements that are not large-scale are stereotyped to fail, as the political landscape and global market do not take notice of smaller artists and movements, and do not deem them worthy of their time and money, unless smaller artists and movements have backing from important figures and/or companies. Politics and capitalism can be hard to understand, and for me it's confusing. I am not a political person myself. I focus more on nostalgia and beauty. However, I understand capitalism and its role in the market of today's world. For me, I'm seeing this statement from a job perspective. I see my art as my job, and thus my job needs to earn me money. I have often felt that art and politics are in constant conflict. Art and revolution are not actually opposites, and in fact they both feel the same uneasiness with the status quo. But politics would maintain the status quo, and naturally its direction is different from art, which is uneasy with the status quo. Liu, 1996. This quote from Liu Jun, The Divergence of Art and Politics, conveys the notion that politics and art are always at conflict with each other. Revolutions throughout history have gone against the political parties of the time, and with contemporary art it is still the same. But yet, not all contemporary art is successful to be in conflict with politics. Politicians, leaders, and governments are faced with a new wave of contemporary art that challenges their ideas with new radical ways. However, this art would not exist without the economy, capitalism, and the money of the government and politics backing them. Small contemporary artists that try to make their own movement against a party will typically fail. No one notices, and it typically doesn't make an impact. Unless you're an art student that needs to do a paper, then no one really notices you. Contemporary art has to compete against the global market of niche art. Niche art is pretty much contemporary artists that make art for the market. Fast, sellable artwork that does not revolt, that does not go against the government, but instead is an aesthetic that is marketable and sold to be decor for waiting rooms or lounge rooms. From Jodi Dean's perspective, contemporary artistic practices, as favoured by the left, are only a part of what she takes to be the overall abject limitations to present-day left politics, which only benefit capitalism and the economy. We, 2003. This extract explains how contemporary artists are typically favoured by a side of politics. If you make art that favours that side, you will be backed and become successful and well known. To follow this organised movement is to be successful. Am I saying to make art that goes against your morals so that you can create successful contemporary art? No, I am not. The art world is competitive and challenging. To become successful takes brains and drive. You need to think logically and organise yourself into movements that you align yourself with, and know you can make artwork that can be noted. Aligning yourself into a group does not mean you're selling out. Instead, it gives you many opportunities, such as grants, gallery opportunities, connections, materials, services, etc. I agree with this statement. To be a contemporary artist in today's world, you need marketable art and favoritism to really pave your way in this business. Unless you make something that truly revolts, then you are invisible until you join a large-scale movement. Today's modern age social platforms are depicting what these movements are, from digital challenges to acrylic paint pouring. You can't make a living off of art unless you follow an organised movement, or else your art will fail. This might be a controversial topic. I know that my opinions on contemporary art are somewhat not so popular. However, from my standpoint as an emerging artist, to survive in this world, you need money, and to get money, you need help. You need the wants of consumers thinking they need to buy art for their lobby or lounge room. Is it degrading to follow these somewhat niche movements? Somewhat, yes. But without following a political, capitalist, and/or economical movement that you align with, then all you can really do is make art and hope one day someone notices you. Artistic products, whether actually commodities or commodified experience, displaying political interests and struggles from the streets to the galleries, means spectators can pay or donate to feel radical without getting their hands dirty. We 2010. This quote conveys how contemporary artists today that follow a favourable political movement can make art and it be profitable by consumers paying to see this radically political artwork without actually having to convey their opinions, without actually making art themselves or becoming politicians themselves. This notion follows every opinion and political stance. Consumers love to view their opinion without the harsh reality of the world if they actually stated the opinion themselves. 50,000 years of behavioural modernity has spawned diverse philosophies, opinions, cultural beliefs, and differing existential schools of thought that have all but helped populate a very rich artistic ecosystem. And in this day and age, the relevance of the modern artist comes attached to the rooted economic practice of capitalism. As an ideology, capitalism has managed to infiltrate the power centres of the modern world and emerge as dominant system to live by for most of the urban public of today. This quote from the article, Contemporary Art and Capitalism, conveys how contemporary art as a movement in itself has been moulded and created by many different beliefs, thinking, skills, techniques, cultures, etc. Unlike previous movements, contemporary art is an agglomeration of many different aspects that allow many artists to be themselves, but also allows for the downfall of its movement. Having so many artists that follow different trends and movements creates discourse among the communities. This notion that you can do whatever you want allows for political parties to influence large groups and create bigger movements that are successful, and leave the smaller communities out to dry. Capitalism also has been allowed to enter through this expression of identity. Due to the lack of discipline and rules within the contemporary art movement, capitalism has weaved its webs and sown its seeds deeply into the world. Artists cannot make art without capitalism, whether they like it or not. Consumers will always want art, whether it's niche or not. But to follow a contemporary movement means to always get paid and make a living. Unless the movement creates an oversaturation within the market, then you are just another artist among the crowd. To me, agreeing to this statement is logical. I am an artist because I am good at it, and I like creating depictions of what I like. I also know that what I produce follows a movement that consumers are currently interested in and are buying. To me, this doesn't degrade my work, or degrade myself as an artist. I make art that is an aesthetic to the consumer and myself, and I make money from doing so. This may feed capitalism, but what else can you do as an artist in today's world? Materials that support my argument include journals and articles written by journalists, critiques, and artists themselves. This notion of contemporary art being influenced by the economy, capitalism, and politics is nothing new. The people that may argue against this statement, I do not understand. As in today's modern world, the economy and politics run everything, and no matter what you do or how you create your art, you will always be feeding them, even if it's an artwork that goes against a political movement or an economical aspect. Opposed views are incomplete, in the sense of everything requires money. You need to have money to live in this world. Contemporary artists that claim to be independent from politics and the economy and capitalism are misguided and frankly incorrect. To be an artist is different for everyone, but down to the roots, it is a job. Artists that claim to create art for the meaning or sake of it, I find illogically wrong. Making art is to make a product to sell. Whether it be a niche or a fine art masterpiece, you always put it on for sale. Why? Because it's a job, and you need money. If you make obscure art that follows no movement and you don't align yourself with a group, then you will not be noticed and not sell art. However, if you do align yourself with a group and make art that follows an organised movement, people will notice and consumers will buy. The whole point of a practice is to create products for consumers to consume. Some artists may call this degrading on their practice or absurd, but I see this from a point-blank logical side. This is my job, and if I follow a large-scale movement, I know I will succeed. Contemporary art that does not follow a large-scale organised movement will fail. Artists need to realise that the art world is changing into a political landscape that favours capitalism, and capitalism favours consumers that buy art that suits their movements. If you do not follow these movements, you'll be stuck making art that does not gain notability or make you money. It's the sad reality of the contemporary art world, but this world is demanding and ruthless, and if you don't play your cards right, you will never truly become a successful contemporary artist. What I have discussed and explored through quotes and paraphrasing from multiple sources has explored the notion of contemporary art and contemporary artists in the modern world, and how if contemporary art does not follow a large-scale organised movement, it will fail, and to follow a successful organised movement is to allow for capitalism, politics, and the economy to influence your practice and artwork so that you can become successful. My opinions and discussion may be harsh. It may not even make sense to some people. From my position, I see it as the truth. As an artist, this is my job, and I will agree with Jodie Dean's statement. And like many artists before me, I will create artwork not just for myself, but for the consumers, for the people who want to buy art, and I will follow movements so that I can develop my skills and techniques throughout the years, and hopefully one day become a successful contemporary artist. I finish with a quote that I found from a gentleman named Alex Tabernock. Capitalists work hard to produce what consumers want. Artists who work too hard to produce what consumers want are often accused of selling out. Thus, even the languages of capitalism and art conflict. A firm that has sold out has succeeded, but an artist that has sold out has failed. From reading this quote, the idea that I got from it is that the goal of a contemporary artist is to not sell out. Capitalism has infiltrated the art world and made it so that it is easier to sell out and start making niche art just to survive. I find this quote explains why I was on the fence about agreeing or disagreeing. I want to make money, and so I do create niche artwork. However, I have morals and principles that I stand by, and thus I follow movements that allow myself to create the fine artwork I want, while still satisfying consumers. What I'm trying to say overall is that to be a contemporary artist in today's world is like walking through a minefield. It's scary, daunting, and one wrong move can destroy your career. However, allowing politics and the economy to influence you into following a movement is a good safety net when starting out, and can grant you many opportunities to be noticed. Overall, to follow an organised movement is not bad, and will not degrade you. Aim for success, not failure. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my video on a statement about contemporary art. Whether you disagree or agree, I implore you to keep making art and become the best contemporary artist that you know you can be, and stand by your morals always.